Cool. Welcome everybody to our webinar. We'll introduce ourselves a little bit later down the line, but ultimately here we want to talk about specialty coffee and Big Wave BI. I got introduced to Greg a little over a year ago, and we've been on an incredible journey. The last year, something that I've been super excited about. And we now want to we feel like we're in a position now where we can share this story. We've called this sort of webinar Riding the Fifth Wave. I think everybody in here with a coffee background will understand that, the third wave of coffee is often referred to wave that really focused on quality of coffee and on roasting particularly as well for a flavor perspective. Maybe over the last 5 to 10 years, we've seen fourth wave, maybe some referred to as a focus on either processing at a farm level to improve quality even more, but then also on equipment using scales more readily available, or all this sort of thing as well. And really now I think we're really going to see the next big wave coming through, the fifth wave of just big data analytics and IoT. I think we're already starting to see it creep in automatic bean to cup machines. It's been a very long time. I think just now we're going to become more and more aware of our data. It doesn't matter how big you are as a business or how small. Clifton Coffee, I'd say, is a small coffee company. But the more I've been working with Greg, the more I've realized just how much data that we are actually going through. So that's the reason we've called it this fifth wave. I'm sure Greg's going to tell you a little bit later on about why the company's called Big Wave BI as well. There's a good story behind that. Good to have you all in. Thanks for tuning in today. So our story so far, it's been really interesting. I think from Clifton's perspective as a journey, for those who know us, we've been part of the industry for 20 years. 8 years ago, we started a sourcing program, and it's grown exponentially year on year. I think everybody in the industry has been affected by COVID in some way or another. But just before that, as we were riding this wave, there was sort of an ever-growing problem that I was experiencing regularly. And I feel like it's probably quite present in the industry as well. So there's an opportunity to check in here and see if you've felt the same. But I think one of the hardest things that we've been able to, one of the hardest things we've come across is that we've not been able to just harness our data and understand what it means. Be encouraging if anybody else has felt like that to post, say, yes, that's me. Because I think that we know our business, we know it intricately, we know coffee, but I think just harnessing all the aspects of data, not just the price of our coffee or where it comes from, but just everything around that and what it means. And then I think the other thing that came up within our journey was just that there's just not enough time to go through all of these different sources of data, whether it be an email or a contract or something in Cropster or something maybe in your ERP system, and bring it all together in one place. One of the questions that I often used to ask is just how do I access my numbers, whether that be contracts that I've got from import exporters, whether that's what we're producing in-house, whether that's orders from customers, and get access to it quickly as well. So that was something. Another question I guess we've all probably had is, can I trust the numbers that are my CSV files? I'm sure we've all probably tried to export data and it's just turned into a CSV file, and then you've got 20 CSV files in your downloads and you're trying to scroll back through which one is which, and you've named this one final and this one final, and then you've got like 4 finals before you realize you don't really have anything meaningful to go into meetings. And at that point, I was just finding that strategic action planning seemed impossible. To get to a point where I got my data, knew that I could trust it, and then put it in a way that meant that I could make strategic actions was becoming more and more difficult. And that's where really our journey then began with Power BI. So if we go on to the next slide, we can sort of just pass over to Greg now. I'll shut up for 5 minutes and let us know, who we are. Have I slipped the slide, haven't I? I've still got you on mute, Greg, as well. If you want to unmute, I can just finish off here first before I shut up. So I'm Josh. I'm from Clifton Coffee Roasters. We're a specialty roastery in the UK. We've been going for 20 years, as I said. Our roasting program has been going for 8 years, and we source coffee. We're predominantly a wholesale business. We source from all over the UK, from around the world, and we ship globally as well. Our focus is wholesale market, really, as well. We've got around about 1,000 wholesale customers around the UK, and really focusing on this coffee program. But that's who we are, that's who I am. I'll pass over to Greg now.
Sounds good. Thanks, Josh. So my name's Greg Berg, company's Big Wave BI, and my background is actually aerospace industry. I've worked in the aerospace industry for 20 years prior to starting my own business about 2 years ago. I live out on the west coast of Canada, beautiful Chilliwack, BC. It's about an hour away from Vancouver, lots of lakes and mountains nearby. And it was in that role as a project manager that I actually discovered Power BI. I'd been a project manager for about 12 years, and similar to what Josh described, we were responsible for budgets and pulling together together information from a variety of sources. That aircraft there, the 787, was built with tooling. We built the tools that surround the airplane, everything in blue there. Multi-million-dollar budgets, parts being sourced from around the world. We had divisions in Sweden, Texas, and the East Coast of the US. And so we had to pull together budgets from different ERP systems and deal with different currencies. And I was kind of living that nightmare that Josh described, spending a couple hours every week trying to pull that out. And Power BI came on the scene about officially 5 years ago, but prior to that, it was actually an add-in to Excel, and it still lives. A good portion of it is actually inside of the modern version of Excel. So that's where I discovered it and just realized just the power of it. Spent more and more time using it to the point where, I was able to create a role for myself in that organization doing Power BI. And that's how much it was valued, and it was very exciting. With my business now, I've worked with around 50 different companies over the last 2 years in a wide variety of areas, retail, e-commerce, food manufacturing, construction, healthcare, quite a variety. Just seen a lot of similarities, a lot of variety, big data and smaller data as well. I've also mentored under Abhi Singh. He's a Microsoft MVP. And if you look him up, I can put a link to his stuff below, but he's one of the more prominent Power BI guys out there. And he's been phenomenal teacher for me. I also partner with a network of other Power BI specialists, whether it be finance or project management or even e-commerce. That's a bit about me.
Yeah, so the Clifton Coffee Big Wave story is kind of interesting. In 2018, we started using Teams. We were one of the early adopters to get on the Teams bandwagon, thanks to Changing Social, one of the adoption partners that we've worked with. They're a Microsoft partner as well, and linked us up. Microsoft wanted to tell a case study story. Some of you may have seen my face on the television at the moment. Sorry if you have. Probably bored of it already. As a result, Microsoft came and we did our first case study, and Forbes picked up a little article about us as well. But one of the producers, while he was here, turned to me one day and said, this is cool. This is like a first step in your digital transformation. You guys should really look at Power BI next. And just like many of you in the chat here, I was like, what is Power BI? I've never heard of it. He was like, well, I can show you briefly, but it's a data analytics program. It just gives you cool insights and helps you manage your data. Really, really simple, but it got me thinking. My first thought was actually, I don't think this is going to be appropriate for us because we're a company that has like just about 30 employees. We're not that big. We can't be processing that much data. Well, we are processing. I sort of know where to get them, but it was proving more and more difficult. And it was just sort of the first time my mind had been opened to starting to look into this, how much data we have, how much we process, all the different systems that it's in. And then slowly but surely you end up down a rabbit hole where it's just taking more and more time for you to start to understand it. But you can see the benefit of the more that you understand your data, the more you can use it to perform strategic action planning for your business, the more effective it's become. So I started like any wise person would do. I go straight to Google and I typed in Power BI, and Avi's YouTube channel came up, wrote in on one of the sort of things that he has to link you up with a consultant. And that's where I was linked up to Greg. I think the next slide is an embarrassing slide of my very first depiction of how I wanted dashboards to look, how I could get all the different data sources that I was starting to become aware of and how I could put them onto one dashboard to see what was going on in our business. I think you were politely impressed with this, Greg, but then very quickly showed me what Power BI could do, right?
Yeah, honestly, it was great to understand what you wanted, direction you wanted to go. And I think the cool thing about, usually we don't try to lock into the solution and, right at the beginning, map it all out. Typically a pretty agile process. Like once you can see the data's in, what the visuals can do and what can be shown, usually it takes a different direction and it invariably.
Yeah, totally. This isn't live data. Just an example of what we would have. If anybody uses Sage here, you've probably spent as many hours as I have just looking at this export runner, report runner, just waiting for your CS file to download and work out what is going on and how you can access that. But yeah, if I guess some of the points that I was maybe a bit skeptical about at the beginning, Greg, was, within Power BI, I did download it and I had a little dabble and I started to have a go. And I was like, I don't get this. Is this just another system that doesn't work? The first question that everybody thinks about but doesn't want to ask is, how expensive is this going to be? Whereas I think the way that you helped me approach it was just, well, this isn't how much it's going to cost me. It's how much it's going to save me in the long run, which I thought was really helpful. And yeah, I just found myself, as I said, always exporting data into Excel. So yeah, we decided to take some baby steps forward for a proof of concept, right? And this is where we came up with our first 6 slides.
Yeah, and that was based off that previous slide that you drafted up. And,
Yep.
I think we had a few phone calls, and it was really only the course over, I think within 2 weeks, we took some static numbers from your systems and pulled together some quick reports. I think already that was starting to feel pretty valuable, I think.
Yeah, I think what was great for me is straight away to see that these CSV files that were, just sat as often just as spreadsheets in my, maybe I had a line or a bar graph if I got lucky, just sat there, and to be able to turn them, in the space of a few phone calls, a few hours, turn them into data that was just far more visually engaging, allowed me to go to other team members and get people excited about, well, cool, this is what's happening in Clifton Coffee at the moment. And this is what it's telling us. These are the insights that we're getting. And this is how we can use these insights to improve our roastery. This is how we can do it to improve our, the level of service that our customers get. This is how we can look to just operate leaner. This is how we can get more time or understand how we're using our time. It was a great 3-week project, right? And the pinnacle was we got to present it, right? Over on YouTube. This was presented out, and it's still on YouTube now, right? We could probably post the link in the chat maybe at some time.
Sure.
And yeah, I think one of the things that came up in our first case study with Microsoft is that we had a lot of data, but we wanted to now take more and more steps and being able to automate dashboards for us. You see, at this point, I put that this will help us speed up our process. I can now confidently say that it has helped us. With our strategic planning and decision making over the last year. I think reporting is one of the most, contentious topics. People just say, it's spreadsheets for the sake of spreadsheets and so on and so forth. But right now it's becoming sort of the linchpin to our business, helping it understand it and helping it grow as well. 6 months later, this is where we got to, right? We had a specific problem. We had multiple systems that meant I'd have to go into different web applications or download different reports, and it was just eating up more and more of my time. And this was the solution. We were able to build a roasting schedule out of the differences between our green inventory and the stock that we had on hand versus our orders. We were able to understand our wholesale team report and see what our customers were doing around the country, where they were ordering from. And we had local lockdown restrictions across the UK. We were able to use the map functions and split the country into boroughs and turn boroughs on and off. So we were able to strategically forecast how much coffee was going to be ordered, how many staff do we need to be on the flexible furlough system. We saw our subscriptions take off as well. So we wanted to understand how many coffees were going out. Can we buy coffee in a more lean fashion to know what the growth is? We had an exporter in our WooCommerce, in our e-commerce structure, which had all of our subscriptions sort of locked in there, but trying to understand, when they were going to be raised next was quite hard. We wanted to understand our equipment and our water filtration as well. So we really started to pull together this amazing sheet, group of dashboards, split down departmentally, right, that helped us out. Our first roasted in-house report, we wanted to be able to pull together information from our order system. We wanted to be able to see what's going on. So Greg, do you want to talk us through what you've done now with this sort of template?
Yeah, you want to just look at the live version?
Yeah, I think so. Just drop into Power BI.
For sure. So this is actually in Power BI here now. So with this template, there's several different reports within. So this is all to do with the roastery. This is all fake data. I've picked up some Canadian companies. Basically, you can see the different product lines, stock categories, if you will, and just see how much you're doing month by month. You get a little bit of a kind of a bar chart here that kind of shows it visually. You can also drill into any given account and just see what the buying trend is or how much you've been roasting for any given customer.
Yeah, the problem that we had when we first started looking at roast and house data, that I had 3 systems that I was using, and Power BI, this dashboard particularly, allowed us to pull it all into one source. What I love is how interactive it is. You can slice and dice, and you can understand stuff straight on hand. And I think one of the best things we did, right, was get to a point where we were getting Neon live data, Greg, coming out from these systems and refreshing the dashboard, right?
Yeah, 100%. So this, in Clifton's world, it's connected live to their data sources. Sage 50 would be one example that a lot of this data is coming from. Also, there's data coming from Cropster that is blended together in here. Not this slide, or this report, but in this dashboard. And it's set up you can set up the refresh schedule as often as you want within I think there's a limit of 8 per day with the pro license, 8 times a day, but that's usually plenty for the data. Yeah, so a little bit of, you can see sort of the month over month, the amount sold, what the trend is with any given client. You do have the ability to drill even further into the underlying data through a drill through page. You can right click and go into and see exactly what a particular client is, the very down at the invoice level, like every single invoice. So that's coming straight from Sage. We've got different reports just to cover the various product lines. So
yeah, what we wanted to be able to do is understand, all of our customers and how they're grouped, or if they're single sites, what categories they were taking. What does this look like for us week on week as we're producing coffee? How can we understand what we're producing, how regularly we're producing, and who are we producing for? And then we could tie this into when are these ordering? When are these customers ordering? Are these trends to when these customers are ordering? Do we need to buy more coffee specific to these customers? And so on and so forth. So it really allowed us to have this full interactive ability to sort of get this information in one place. If you decide to have an impromptu meeting where you're on the shop floor and you want to understand stock, we could just open this dashboard up right on my phone and get the answers to the questions that we were always asking regularly. This is what I really liked, is that it's one of the things I mentioned earlier is, I don't know if anyone can to vouch this in the chat, but if you really start to think about what do you want to understand about your role or your business, is that you're probably really only asking yourself the same, maybe 10 maximum questions regularly. And I think what was great about this is that we got those questions down and we were able to then present them visually, really, really engaging way to understand what's going on and how we can move forward from it as well.
Different variations, looking at different products here. This would be looking at your subscriptions and just the sales by month, wholesale versus retail, just kind of the breakdown there. This chart would give you the trends over time. It's kind of the one where the information coming from Cropster would be coming in here in this column here, and this would be your numbers coming from Sage, right?
Mm-hmm.
So quite powerful in terms of being able to then develop a roast plan, I'd say, for you guys anyways.
Yeah, exactly. We could start to see what was on hand, what was coming, and then create this schedule of what we needed to produce. And we're really sort of about lean manufacturing here. We don't want a lot of coffee that's just wasted or sat there having to be over-processed, or keeping a track of excess inventory, need more space to store it all, et cetera, et cetera. So it was really helpful for us to start to see this breakdown here. Here's a question. Are you integrating BI for inventory management and packaging? Is the answer at the moment is we're on that journey to get this in now, but you've got some cases of how this can integrate for inventory, probably, Greg, right?
Yeah, I'm working on one right now where it's basically a planning tool that's looking at what the inventory is on hand. It's looking at what's being produced on a week-to-week basis, and we're actually pulling from 2 different ERP systems. The company is a food manufacturing company that's just acquired another site, so they're living in 2 different ERP systems currently. They're actually moving to Business Central very, very soon as well. So the Power BI tool, basically at a week-by-week level, just shows them the stock on hand, what's being produced, what's being put on hold, and what's their typical, like their average weekly sales. So they can see very quickly. They're using it as a planning tool, and actually we've built them a planning sandbox, if you will. So offline in an Excel worksheet, they can develop their plan for the week, refresh Power BI, and just see what the impact would be. Develop the plan before they load it into the ERP system. They can just see what the impact will be in Power BI, and then load it to the system if they're good with it. So I don't know if that answers your question, Stuart. Feel free to unmute yourself too I'd gladly answer that too.
Have you ever worked with the inventory system Unleashed? I've not heard. Greg, have you?
No, I have not.
Maybe that's one we need to go in and do some homework on. But I assume that just be able to integrate as well, which would be, I think, one of the most exciting dashboards I was able to go through last year is see our coffee and see exactly where we were sourcing from, and then I could just click on a country and see what that looked like, how much value was that coffee in terms of weight, in terms of projects, what was the quantity, and just see this. Cropster has a function that's a little bit like this, but it doesn't present it in the same way. But this is connected for us directly to Cropster. Again, this data has all been anonymized here, but in the same way, it give you an understanding of what that would look like and how you could get it. This is something cool that you've been working on right over the last, I guess, 3 months, really. Particularly, we've been trying to get this exporter to work, right?
Yeah, so this is picking up the data straight from WooCommerce through the API, basically just looking at their subscription services. And I think as an outsider, just seeing how they are currently looking at that, I think it's been a little bit difficult for you guys to forecast and sort of run that through your roastery and just understand the demand every given week. But the idea here is I'll just open the actual dashboard. So this would be the WooCommerce dashboard. So you have some high level, just the sales week over week. Here you could drill into and just see your subscriptions for any given week. So if you look at week 23, we've got the week number up at the top. Well, basically, yeah, you can see just a high level summary of the different product lines that you sell as a subscription, right?
Yeah, and this is really helpful for us. We knew that customers could sign up to our subscription service and that would sit in our websites, but we wouldn't see those orders come through very easily until the day that they were due to be raised. It was great you could react and produce each day, but I think what has been great about this now is that we can click 4 months down the line and see subscribers, pending things like cancellation rates as well, but just see where they are, what they're going to order, and what are the volumes going to look like as well. So from forecasting from a purchase perspective as well, that really helps us, just to take this proactive approach rather than sort of get into the turning point and be like, well, I have to make a decision now. For us, it's put that sort of decision-making process 5-6 turns ahead of where we actually are, which is, it's super helpful.
We had this one here that we were going to talk about.
This one might be unique to us, more from the roasting or maintenance side of things, is that, with customers, you've probably got some sort of water filtration system. We were able to take the data that comes out of the water filtration units to see how many liters of filtered water are available with the customer, feed this through Microsoft Forms into a database, and then present this as a way by which we could see the amount of readings that we have on a customer, the amount of filtered water that they would have left in their filter before it would run out. But then also, so we've got a customer here that we can see the days between each of the readings, and then ultimately a prediction date as to when that filter is going to run out, when we, because we provide equipment support as well, when they would need to sort of have their filtration system. So there was sort of like some very early AI built in that could start to predict when we need to see or when we need to change before it happens again. So it's allowed us to become, again, moving away from this sort of reactive nature and become proactive, seeing problems or issues and solving them before they happen. And this was a really interactive map as well, just an example of sort of trends you can see around the UK of water, what accounts there are, how they split by country, and so on and so forth as well. So this one's a super cool ability to sort of drill in on a country, see the water filters that are there, see how many they are, click on a customer and drill into each of those as well. So just another little powerful tool that if anybody's does that sort of support as well, it's going to be able to help.
There's some cool functions here. You can lasso select, say you want to look at a particular area. You can treat that map visual as a slicer actually to affect other visuals on the page. So it's a really interesting way of looking at your data, combining maps and other insights. Just how do you get started? So some of you mentioned you haven't heard of Power BI, and then some have used it for a while, but I think for even just downloading the free version of Power BI and just checking it out. And the other thing is, if you're interested, if you'd be open to us following up with you, that'd be great too. Like if you want to, I think we have our contact on the last slide, and be glad to do that.
Yeah, I think this is something that we've been really excited about. I've been really excited as an industry professional, but just seeing how Greg has helped us with this, and I really see that this is the next sort of wave. I think understanding business and data analytics, seeing the power of Power BI, but using a consultant like Big Wave BI to bring it all to life has just been a really exciting journey. I feel like we're again just starting to scratch the surface here. There's far more ideas that we're working on in the background that I think can really help shape. And I think the biggest thing that I wanted to get across from today is that this isn't about big business or big data. I think those words can often become big obstacles. This is new BI. It's super agile and is accessible for anybody as well. So please take the opportunity to follow up with Greg if you've got any data questions, and myself as well. And I'd love to just testify to how it's helped us, but hopefully link you into Greg as well to get his insight too.
Sounds good. We left some time here at the end for questions. I know you've asked a lot along the way, and love to hear from you.
Yeah, if anyone's got any questions, I think they can. You can unmute yourself.
Hi, I've got a question. It's Vina from STS. We've recently had Business Central and Microsoft Dynamics rolled out into our business, and we're not actually extrapolating any of the data. So one of the things we are looking at is looking into Power BI. All of those infographics you showed us, was that produced in Power BI or is that a different plugin?
No, those were all produced in Power BI. I would say out of the box. So let me just go back a few slides to kind of our first version that we kicked out. I would say would reflect more what the typical Power BI visuals would look like. With the work with Clifton, I've kind of put my own stamp on it, if you will. Like there's certain things we've done, the different headers, the different colors are different backgrounds that you can pull in, and just to kind of bring it all to give it a certain look. But I'd say, yeah, it's all in Power BI, everything you've seen on these slides here.
Okay, and I'm assuming, or I'm assuming that these reports are live, so these are refreshed regularly, or are they set on a sort of a time schedule where they get updated and they come in an inbox, or is it just a dashboard that is continually updating?
So it is set up on a regular refresh. So I've been showing here in the demo, this is the Power BI desktop. This is literally like a download that you run off your desktop. You then publish it to the web, and after it's published to powerbi.com, it's just a website where the report would live. You can then set up a regular refresh schedule. I'm oversimplifying it a bit, but maybe just to add some complexity to that, like for the Clifton project, we use something called data flows, and data flows is kind of an intermediate, kind of like a transition. We pulled the data into the data flow from the ERP systems, from the APIs, from all the different data sources. We used a data flow to then we've got that on a refresh schedule, and then the reports themselves refresh on a regular schedule as well. It's just a way of disconnecting the data sources from the end report and allowing different rates of refresh. So for example, there's a lot of static files that we reference that we store in SharePoint. We don't have to refresh those every day, every couple times a day. We've got those on a weekly refresh. But then some of the more interesting data, like the Sage data, we've got it on a every couple of hour refresh, particularly in the morning. So you can really customize that and make it when you'd like the refreshes to be. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yes, it does answer my question. Thank you. So when you say you use Dataflow and you pull data from all sorts of sources, I'm assuming then, for example, we use Business Central, we use Microsoft Dynamics, so we're using Sales, CRM, etc. So I'm assuming that you can pull data from all of these sources to create the reports that I would particularly want to see.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, and with Business Central, I mean, it's designed to it's right in the same ecosystem as Power BI. It's absolutely meant to work together for sure.
Yeah, because I was listening to Josh, and it was almost as if he was saying exactly. It was almost as if you were just repeating everything that I would say, from integrity of data, accuracy of data, being able to get all this information together and to make strategic decisions. So it's something we've used Sage 200 in the past, and we just could not get the data to make decisions. It was just really painful. So we're looking forward to, building our Power BI platform and giving us real-time data.
That's great. It's exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And Domenico, can you dynamically set filters like date ranges? Absolutely. You can do a lot with the date ranges. So for example, over here, you can set filters. I don't know if this is the best example, but if you wanted to, you can set a filter on a visual level. So you would do that here. You can set a basic filter, or there's advanced filtering. So you could do relative date. You just want to see the items in the last X number of days, and you apply that, and it's going to filter that particular visual only. You could do that for any given visual on the page, or you could apply a filter at the page level. So typically what we would do is build in a custom calendar. That's typically one of the things that we would do. So for example, you can filter, I want to see on this page, basically everything that is greater or equal to the current week is what I'm doing right here. So on this page, I'm just showing now on this page, I'm not going to be able to see anything. To answer your question, yes, like using filters like this, you can filter at the page level or in the entire dashboard. Let me know if that answers your question, Domenico.
Yeah, and Stuart, how easy is it to create forecasts for the next 4 weeks of expected sales? I think for us as a business, we just thought of seeing how regular are your orders and your sales. The more data you can sort of plug in and the more regular data you can give, the more accurate that we were expecting to see. So we use ours for our weekly production reports. But if we look at the further go back you go with your data, and the more that I think represents your business, the more you can go forward. And then you can create things like trend lines as well. So if you are seeing an increased rate of, or a decrease of, or an average fluctuation of as well, you can start to see how that would then forecast. We use it now for 12 weeks ahead for our green purchases, for our subscriptions. So and that's working really lean at the moment. We're looking at what is our rate of growth, how much do we need, and then also within that, what it's going to be roasted for, because we profile for sort of espresso or filter as well.
I've just set up a visual here where there's built-in functionality here. You can show like a trend line. You can see the trend on a particular data set. You can forecast like this. It's probably gonna, it's a little out of whack because just the nature of this dashboard, it's showing future sales, but the future sales are, really we'd want to isolate those data points because they're just not representative of the pattern here. But to answer your question, you can definitely there's definitely forecasting ability in here.
Any other questions anyone's got?
I'll put up the last slide. It's just our contact info, so you can get a hold of me if you reach out to me on one of those two platforms, or go to my website, which is bigwavebi.com.
If anyone does want to follow up with me on how we've used it on the coffee specific side of things before, maybe you want to ask Greg or to ask it together, we're more than happy to have a follow up call with anybody. I'm just super happy and proud of work that Greg's done, and hence the reason I want to sort of tell this story to the industry. Really, I think there's a lot of businesses that can sort of benefit from it of all different sizes. I spoke to big import exporters and small roasteries as well, and I think we all can see the benefit of getting data, harnessing it, reducing the time it takes to put it all together, and then use it consistently to make strategic decisions as well. Yeah, and I think using a partner like Greg has been able to open us up to that, and throughout we're 18 months down the line of using these dashboards now, and things change, right? Goalposts move, things need to update and be regularly changed. You might ask a slightly different question. You might ask a more sort of developed question for a dashboard now as well. I think what's there also been awesome as well is how do you keep our dashboards current? How do you ensure that they, the questions that you ask today, the questions that you ask, 6 months, a year down the line are going to be just as good. And I think with all the hard work that we've done in setting up the data flows and everything else, the easy bit really is just picking what visualization you want then, or what you want answered, Greg, right? I think the hard work is understanding a business, and we spend a lot of time in putting together these connectors, custom connectors, to ensure that everything syncs up. At that point, then it's like, I don't know, pick a mix shop. You can pick whatever visual you want, and that can be as powerful or as simple as you want it to be as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of the work is in laying the groundwork, but as you can see, you can add visuals very quickly, and just we did a lot of the work on the fly. It was a lot of fun just kind of picking your brain and just building it on the fly. A lot of working calls with you. So
that's great.
Yeah,
Josh, I would maybe add you can use it as a predictive tool. So even though it's not formally AI, once you have 2 or 3 years data in, even if you backload your data, you can start to say, well, this customer's bought so much this year up to this date, and you can then compare it to last year. So we have graphs that will show us what last year was and what this year is, and then you can start to filter and be predictive, and that can help drive sales and other things, which are quite useful. My only comment is I think you do need someone like Greg who knows what they're doing, because I had lessons on this and tried to build it and got a little bit unstuck trying to get it to work properly.
And I totally did as well. And this is the point that I got myself to, Phil, was where I was like, I know what I wanted to do, but I need this sort of niched Power BI consultant to make it a reality. And I don't see any Power BI consultants doing this in coffee specifically yet. So I think there's a huge market for someone to break in and really tackle this. And
Generation 10 tried. I don't know if you heard of them, but they're a cotton company in Liverpool, IT, and they came into coffee and offered it. We took it up, tried to put it in, but the back end never worked. So the front end always looked fantastic.
But the back
DR Wakefield took them on, and it almost killed them, I think.
Really?
So but that was too early. I think it was 3-4 years ago, and their back end didn't work.
And we put the majority of time that we put in, I'd say 80% of the time that Greg and I have worked, have been on getting that background nailed, so that when, on calls just like this, we can pull the dashboard up and then choose how we want it to look. I'd say, 20% is the front end, 80% is the back end. That's where Greg's value for me has come in, at least anyway. We'll use this time to say thank you very much. Please follow up, with Greg or myself, and it'd be great to chat.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, we've put in quite a bit of work just connecting to Cropster, for example. That's one. WooCommerce. Just some of the software that I think other roasteries might be using, but that could benefit a lot of other companies. But appreciate what you said, Philip, that maybe there's been challenges there too as well. So yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody, and we'll catch up with you all very soon.
Thank you all.
Thanks for putting this on. It's great.
Thanks. Bye.
See ya.